Yeah, thank you so much for introducing us. Again, my name is Connor Frank. I have been with Breezeway coming up on 4 years now. Prior to that, I was a property manager. So, in a lot of your shoes, I managed only 17 properties back then. Ben, I know you do a lot more, so I'll let you introduce yourself.
Thanks, Connor. Thanks for having me today. Yeah, I'm the general manager of Frias Properties of Aspen Snowmass. We manage 170 plus vacation rentals, around 60 non-rental homes and condos, and 60 HOAs, homeowners associations. So very multifaceted business that keeps us on our toes.
Yeah, a lot more experience than I had with my 17 properties that I was managing. Like I mentioned, I work for Breezeway. I'll start it off just explaining what Breezeway is, what Breezeway does. And so, like Streamline is a property management system, Breezeway is an operations system. And so, operations, you can think of it like the core of what you do day to day in your business, as far as sending out your cleaners, inspectors, ensuring your maintenance is being facilitated and kind of automating that. Breezeway, of course, everything we do comes back to that operations. And so that's where we like to really maintain and keep our focus. And so you can see we have over 350,000 properties utilizing Breezeway today, which is awesome to see a lot of work being handled, as you can imagine, with all those properties. With operations, just to give you some insight on what that actually looks like, task automation, of course, when tasks are happening, when reservations are coming in, cleans have to be scheduled out and inspections have to happen and any maintenance needs to be reported. And so automating a lot of that is the core of what operations is. Of course, it's so much more than that. It's coordinating that work. It's ensuring you have checklists for your cleaners, inspectors to go through to get that work done. It's managing your supplies and inventory and seeing how all of that kind of works within each other. And then we have our guest experience portion of that. Um, Ben here utilizes kind of both the operations and the messaging platform, but with our guest experience, our core goal is to bring everything back to operations. And so you'll see a lot of the things that we do with our messaging guidebook, assist safety, we're bringing back to operations. And so there's a lot of features that really tie them back together. I won't go too into that about that today. We're going to focus about getting five-star stays and helping out your operations. And so let's dive in a little deeper now into what operations is. And it really is more than just checking boxes. It's the real work that's being done here at your properties, around your properties, and of course in the office, coordinating all that work. And so 73% of Breezeway users are completing more than 50 tasks a week. Tasks, of course, consist of those cleans, inspection, maintenance, property services, you name it. Real work, real people that are going out doing work. And so it is an orchestration of all of that work that's going on. And our goal is, of course, to streamline that and make that as efficient as possible. And so when you are getting those, responses from guests talking about issues, like how can we ensure that those are being handled efficiently? How can we ensure your guest is being taken care of? Because at the end of the day, those are the ones that are bringing you the money. And it's important to cater towards their needs, of course, as efficiently as possible. And so, I guess, Ben, let me bring you in here. What made you realize that you needed a better system to manage the operations with all the rentals that you are currently managing?
Sure, thanks, Connor. I'm gonna go back a little bit in time here. So we've been in business for several decades, and obviously have used various systems along the way. And as technology has advanced, we've tried to stay with the times. Um, Prior to 2023, when we made the switch to Streamline, we were with a system called IQware, and that had an operations kind of work order tracking software called Track and Care, which was somewhat antiquated, but we were able to make it work for what we needed. And we kind of already knew how we wanted to operate, and um, we ultimately switched to Streamline in 2023, mainly to enhance our reservations and booking connections and platform. And Streamline has done that, and we are extremely happy with Streamline in that regard. We initially thought Streamline would be able to um, handle the operations side, but like I said earlier, we've got hundreds of different properties and a fairly complex layout of how we run the business. So we pretty quickly realized that Streamline wasn't going to be able to handle the operation side for what we needed, which is okay. And we were introduced to Breezeway and had a laundry list of boxes to check and questions to ask, and ultimately felt confident that Breezeway was going to be able to help us. So, the breaking point was kind of making that big switch to Streamline and then realizing that we needed something more. And we were kind of doing a workaround for about 6 months. But then we made the switch to Breezeway and spent, I'd say, probably about a month between myself and a few other staff members kind of building it out and getting it to where we needed it to launch to the staff and then just hit the ground running. And it pretty much has worked properly and effectively since then. And we've obviously enhanced and built on that foundation, but it's really worked well since the start.
Yeah, no, I heard you mention like all the check boxes you needed with the software. I talk with hundreds of property managers each year. And I'll tell you, not one of them has the same operations. None of them work the exact same, and every single one of them has their unique needs and what they need. And so trying to find like the best solution is difficult, but like once you find it and start creating your processes, that's where you find that efficiency.
100%.
Talking about driving efficiency, and the secret to five-star reviews, this is where you really want to start building out your standards of practice and your SOPs and what that looks like. And so you obviously know when a guest checks out of a property, what needs to happen. And so a clean, of course, needs to occur. If you schedule inspections, those need to happen. And what does that look like? So, of course, your cleaners go in, they see something wrong with the property and they need to report maintenance issues. And so how do you answer those and how do you kind of manage that workload that comes in from all of your inspections, from all your cleans, and ensure you're kind of tracking those. And so starting to really dive into your practices and how to make repeatable processes for all of these operations that you're doing every day, is how you can start to really drive those five-star reviews and get your efficiency. Because when you have a process, and you follow that, the same goal is going to happen at the end of it. And so that's like the main thing that you really want to work towards is getting your operations in a way where you can standardize them to really get to your end goal. Property management, of course, there's something new every day, but ultimately you're able to look into what those ac issues actually are to dive down and see like, all right, if this happens, how do we answer that? So, Ben, when you started to tighten up your operations, how have you seen your reviews reflect out of that?
Yeah, well, they've certainly improved, and just getting back to kind of the standard and automation. It's almost Breezeway. It's almost like if you can describe how you want to automate something, or describe to their service team how you want to build something out. There most likely is a way to build it out that, and after learning, you can kind of do it on your own. But at first, there's a small learning curve. But um, yeah, when you're able to automate and you're able to, set um, routines, it just makes sure nothing slips through the cracks, from guest communication to, the housekeeping service that you've agreed upon in the contract, to, the maintenance inspections. There's visibility into all of that, and it really, I don't know if it eliminates, but limits the chance of something slipping through the cracks. And ultimately, that's what leads to satisfied guests and owners. And for me, communication is a big part of guest satisfaction. And the messaging aspect, the guest facing messaging within Breezeway that then connects to the work order system. For example, if a guest um, messages to our guest services team through Breezeway and says, there's a light bulb out, the guest services team can make a task from that message, assign it to the maintenance team. Maintenance will then receive that request, go to the unit, clock into that task, and the guest will be notified when it's complete. So not only do we know as a company that it's been completed and we know we're doing our job, but the guest also has received that visibility to the completion if they weren't in the unit when it happened. And that just shows them a level of professionalism where they know we're on it. They know we're handling little things promptly. And if there is an issue, they know they can reach us and we're going to respond quickly. So definitely, we use post-day surveys within Streamline, and I would say we've seen an increase in our scores since launching Breezeway.
Yeah. And that's something that when you mentioned the guest reaching out to like your guest services and them responding to those, tying that back to operations and having that be as seamless as possible with getting the work from that the guest needs over to the people that are going to complete the work as seamlessly as possible. That's another step in that operations that, it's not always thought about, but like, hey, we need to make this, we need to drive efficiency. We need to make sure we don't have silos between the team that's doing the work and the team that's communicating with the guests. So eliminating those silos, ensuring that you're getting that work done is like really important. So I'm glad you brought that up.
And with it, I'll add within messaging, like, it's not like one person has visibility into the messaging portal, from the directors of operation to, the concierge to the guest services staff, even like everyone can see history and, everyone can kind of step in when needed or if needed to ensure something was completed. So there's a lot of transparency within the company as to what's being requested, what's being completed, and kind of working together to make sure nothing slips through.
Yeah. Love the transparency and like eliminating those silos.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's move on to some automation and talking about like how that can help you drive the efficiency. End goal is like eliminating human error. And so how can we do that? And that's really through automation and getting as much automated so that your systems are working for you and you're not having to work your systems. And so what does that look like? Task scheduling. Um, you know that at the end of a checkout, a clean needs to occur. And so that needs to be sent to the cleaner. It needs to tell the cleaner where to go, when to go, and how to do it. And so having that be automatic really helps, of course, eliminate a lot of those steps. With that task, let's say the guest cancels or the guest extends the stay or shortens their stay, and that task needs to move around. You want to make sure that those last minute changes are being reflected within your schedule so that you can create that automation so that you're not having to stay tied with the communication to your cleaner and having that drive the efficiency there with having that automated. Now, thinking about like the cleans and the inspections that happen after a stay is like a really obvious one, but one that I want to kind of bring into everyone's attention is like preventative care and like what that looks like. And so you have your HVA filters that you have to change. You have your smoke alarms that you need to change the batteries on. What does that look like? Are you tracking that? Do you know when the last time those smoke alarm batteries were changed? Do you know when the last time the HVAC filters have been changed? I've seen a lot of property managers, operators start a preventative care like maintenance package for their homes. And I've also seen property managers that offer this standard. And so building your standards for your business, because ultimately when a guest goes into a house and stays in that house, that's a reflection on your company. And so if you have that property being at its top, performance, that's the ultimate goal here. A couple other things I want to point out is like gap night offers. Being able to automate this, our ultimate goal here is to be profitable. And so, as a property manager, how can we do that? We already have the guests, they're already staying in our property. And guess what? We have a night before or after their stay where we can potentially upsell them to stay longer or stay earlier. And you'd be surprised. I'm surprised when I see some of the numbers that property managers are driving just by sending out a simple message that says, "Hey, the night before your stay is available. Do y'all want to arrive earlier?" Especially for these drive-to markets. Drive-to markets are seeing the best benefit. Fly-to markets, you've really got to hit them a lot earlier to make this effective. But those drive-to markets, gap nights, seeing a lot of good stuff come from that. Last point I want to make on here is like photo verification. Like, what proof do you have from your cleaners that, they're doing the right work, the correct work that you're kind of asking them? Like, do they have a checklist that's on paper that they're going through? Are they taking photos? We all know a certain OTA that is very guest centered, and so like having the proof, and I've heard directly from my clients like, hey, I provided a Breezeway checklist to Airbnb and we actually won. And so those are like those key driving moments of like, hey, we're automating this is happening every time. We have photo verification that our staff is doing what we tell them to. So that's just a cool thing to kind of think about when you are, putting all this automation together. Ben, what's like one automation that's had the biggest impact to you at your business?
Well, we certainly use all of the different automation options you discussed. I think for us, the one that's had the biggest impact and just saves probably the most amount of admin time is the housekeeping schedules. We don't just provide checkout cleans, we provide mid-stay services, and those services are different depending on the quality of unit that's been rented. The frequency can change based on length of stay. So rather than having to manually schedule all that, we've been able to create workflows so that, depending on the length of stay, the type of unit, we know that the correct housekeeping schedule is going to be put in place. It's going to show up directly in Breezeway. If a stay gets extended or shortened, it's going to adjust accordingly. And obviously that just saves a bunch of time. And our housekeeping managers know they can rely on it. And there aren't a lot of question marks as to what service they should or shouldn't be providing. So, and then once in a while, there'll be a weird little glitch for whatever reason because a stay was changed, and we're always able to address that and figure out what was wrong and make sure it never happens again. So it's not to say it's absolutely perfect, but in every case where we've identified, literally one issue out of thousands, we've been able to fix it so it doesn't happen again and learn from it. So um, the housekeeping automation's been really wonderful. And before we had it, it was a big time suck for our team to make sure the housekeeping schedules were correct.
Yeah. Um, Manually managing those, and especially when you have as many properties as you do, can be really difficult, especially as schedules start to change and a cleaner calls out, like, where do we
Yep,
go? What do we
yep.
do? And so having the ability to have the efficiency so that you can make those on the fly adjustments helps out a ton.
And it also, trickles back to guest satisfaction, right? If a guest could be having a great stay, but if you miss that housekeeping service that they were expecting, and they call at 5 o'clock, and our housekeeping team's already gone for the day, and we have to push it to the next day, that kind of leaves a sour taste in their mouth. And if we um, are hitting the marks that we're supposed to be and coming when we say we're going to come, that obviously leads towards guest satisfaction. And we receive high marks on our housekeeping from guests.
Awesome. Let's talk a little bit about what separates good operators from great ones. And I know this first one is always like a point of contention, but like investing in operations tech early and not an afterthought. So what I always hear is like a property manager will, get into their busy season, they'll live it out, and they didn't prepare for all the things that were going to pop up. I just remember like even with my 17 homes, like I was always kind of staying behind on like what I needed to do for my properties. And I didn't know nearly as much as I do now, and I still don't know as much as you've been, but I know now that like starting out with those SOPs, starting out with that playbook of like what needs to happen and ensuring your operations is set up in a way that's scalable. That's like the biggest thing here is like making sure you're able to scale with, let's say you have 15 properties, now you add five more. If you are at the end of the month, adding in 2 hours of time to close out your books, what is it going to look like when you get to 40 properties? What is it going to look like when you get to 80? You want to make sure when you have your operations tech stack like set up and like the entire tech stack that you have, like is what you're doing now scalable? So when you look at like, all right, if I'm at to add five properties today, like is my workload gonna exponentially like increase? If the answer is yes, like investing in tech now to ensure that like when you do have that increase of owners coming to you and saying, hey, I want to use you as my property manager, that you're able to handle them. And then that leads us to the second one here is like treating ops as a growth lever. And so when you have your operations set up to be efficient, to handle the workload of the brunt force, and so you get that automation set up and get a lot of this day-to-day work kind of all in the system, it allows you to have additional time where you can focus on other parts of the business. And so what does that look like? So starting to focus on, okay, how can we get more five-star reviews? How can we start getting more repeat guests? Work on your marketing. And so it gives you time to really focus in on other aspects on your business other than like the work that needs to be done because we know operations isn't going to go away. We know operations is kind of here to stay, and we just need to figure out a way to ensure we're managing that in the most efficient way manner. So I guess Ben, when you're I guess what is like the biggest return on investment that you've seen when you started to, utilize tech and
Yeah,
invest?
for sure. There's definitely some measurable ROIs that I'll get into, but you spoke to what does it look like when you go from 20 to 40 properties, and I can say the extra work when we'll bring on a new rental condo, and obviously it has to be set up and streamlined, and then that automatically feeds into Breezeway, and we can literally it's as simple as adding the right task tags and property tags to the property to set it up so that then we know the and I don't know how familiar everyone is with tags, but basically you assign certain tags to the properties or certain tasks, and then they connect essentially. So when you add a new property, you set up the tags properly, and then all those workflows that we discussed before are going to automatically apply to that property. So very, very simple onboarding process once you've set that up, up front. Certainly, I think there's more that we can do. There's so much within Breezeway that we can all apply, and we're constantly evaluating what else can we be doing to become even more efficient. And it does take time, and it is hard, and but it's certainly been worth it when we've taken that time. Um, as far as the ROI, I think the one kind of real life example that I can share when we launched Breezeway about halfway through a year, this was 2024, we immediately saw a turnaround. So from the start, it was working the way we wanted to. We were tracking work orders properly. They were getting billed to owners properly. It was, they were getting uploaded back to Streamline automatically to post to the owner statements. So immediately saw that ROI. And not only did we make up what we had kind of lost in the first half of the year, but we surpassed it. And that's when when we got to the end of 2024, we realized this was a really good investment. But then I think there's also some things that are maybe not as directly quantifiable, and it comes down to consistency and providing that consistent experience and using these tools to do so. From communication to prompt work order completion and task completion. I'm very confident that all of that goes towards happy guests and also happy owners. And that ultimately leads to repeat customers, them telling their friends to call Frias when they're coming to Aspen Snowmass, them referring us to their friends that have a house or a condo, they're looking for a property manager. And it takes a lot of time and it's never ending. But if you remain consistent, and for us, using Breezeway helps us be more consistent, it has a net positive effect on the bottom line.
Yeah, I always think about the property manager that's running around with like 10 sticky notes in their car to remind themselves to put something in their property management system to like bill an owner and like getting those lost. But if you have it down, it's going to be like it's going to be input because hey, it's sticking there, it's a task, it's kind of what it is. I think like thinking back like over the almost 4 years that I've been with Breezeway, like one of the biggest testaments. So I met a property manager at a conference probably around 3 years ago, and I want to bring this up just because we're talking about like return on investment right now. But she is a firecracker and so fun to talk to. But her and specifically her inspections, that's what I'll talk about. Her inspections. Her inspectors would take out a sheet and have a little check of like everything that they do at the properties, and then they would come in and turn those in. And I told her, I was like, you need Breezeway. Listen, it's gonna make you so much better. A year and a half later, after we met, she got Breezeway, started implementing it, and she said, listen, our inspections used to take 2 hours, and our inspectors could get four done a day. With using Breezeway, they've knocked it down to 45 minutes, and they can get to 8 properties now during their busy season, which is just like the biggest like value for them right now is because they're able to ensure they're getting the right work done. They're able to now have like proof more than just like checking off on a piece of paper. And so that's the coolest testimony that I've heard from one of my clients while utilizing like the right processes and ensuring you're getting that efficiency down.
And that's one less employee right there that you say.
Yeah, exactly. Um, Now two more things here. So standardizing your playbook. And so ensuring that you're getting the same output when you have the input. And so you don't want to have all those spreadsheets. You don't want to have, all those sticky notes. You want to have a single source of truth. And like, where do you look for in that single source of truth to ensure you're getting the work done in an efficient way? Um, That is really what separates a good operator from a great one is when you start to standardize that and hey, anyone can come into your business. You can hire a assistant the next day and they can look at your playbook and say, hey, a guest just wrote in and they said they found, a lost item. What's your process? And hey, if it's already written down somewhere, it's already kind of processed, you know what that looks like for, you know, that specific item. And then lastly, using your data. And so you're getting a lot of data from all of this. And so something that Ben brought up earlier, but like if you're looking at how long it takes a cleaner to clean a house, and it's like on average, hey, it's taking 2 hours and 15 minutes to clean this property. we know that, hey, this is the amount of work that we can give that cleaner based on the amount of time it's spending on properties on a heavy turn day in the winter and for summer markets during the summer when you're having a lot of turnovers, back to backs, all of that. Using that data to work for you. And so checking out like what is the maintenance cost history for a property and like being able to look in like, hey, how many times have we gone to this property to look at the refrigerator? Do we need to tell our owner, hey, we really need a new one? This is the fifth time. It's costing you more money than it would be to put a new one in there. And so using that data to really work for you. And so bringing it back to Ben, like what or like has adding tech changed the way your team feels about the work that they're doing?
Yeah, you just brought up a couple good points. I mean, for one, going back to visibility and kind of transparency, right? Like we call them directors of operations, but they're the ones that are in contact with the homeowners mostly. And obviously, homeowners have questions about the work being done in their units. So, just having the history at your fingertips, whether you're at your computer, on your device, to be able to speak, um, accurately about what's been done at a property and, have everything right in front of you is really helpful for the team. And you're right. I mean, we definitely look at, okay, wow, we've been troubleshooting this dishwasher and a new dishwasher costs $700. Maybe it's time, and we absolutely use that exact scenario where we tell the owner it's not worth spending any more money on this, and they typically say, "You're right. Okay, let's do it." And then, the guests are happier because the dishwasher's not broken. The homeowner's not wasting money when they're ultimately going to replace it anyway, and they realize that we, as the property manager, are looking out for their best interests. So it's really a kind of a threefold success. Um, but getting back to just how the team feels about it, it can be technology in general can be very challenging when it doesn't work properly. And what I found is the field staff, especially, are kind of the most impacted by that. They might not be the most tech savvy, and it might create frustration for them when it doesn't work well. And we've seen that. And, from the start, we did a really thorough training session when we launched Breezeway, and kind of invested the time in the training. But I can say that the field staff love using the app. It's really easy to find their tasks for the day, to clock in, to clock out, to create new tasks that haven't even been assigned to them. It's definitely the best system in that regard. Additionally, we we all have those specific property owners that, may want more than just a standard inspection of their home. And it's fully customizable. So when you're meeting with an owner that has a laundry list of needs that they want checked every week, no problem. You just make notes of those, go back to the inspection task, customize it, and you can even make it so the owner gets an email with the information, including what was done, photos if necessary, and so on. So, an example would be I had a client that we had to email every week and say, "Hey, we inspected your property. Here's what we did. Here's the proof." And that just happens automatically now. And it's the same exact process, just automatically. So, there's one example of a huge time savings there.
Yeah. And just because you bring it up, like owners, that's really the most important part is like pleasing your owners, retaining your owners, because that's where your assets that you're managing are coming from. And so
Mhm.
ensuring that they're happy, ensuring that you're taking care of their property, giving the guests the stay that they expect is what ultimately drives the owners being happy and staying with you and you getting more owners, of course.
Yeah.
Awesome. Now we're going to talk about just connecting your property management system with like operations and how that can create a a seamless guest journey and what that looks like. And so, of course, kind of talk about it from this perspective of Breezeway. And so the booking comes in through Streamline. That's able to be sent directly to Breezeway, of course, and that's when your tasks are auto scheduled. And when those tasks are scheduled, of course, that time comes around where the cleaners, inspectors have to go out there, and that's when that work is done. And so you're, of course, able to automate that pre-arrival communication, the communication while the guest is still there, ensuring that you're giving that five-star property to the guests is where it's most important. I do want to talk about how and the information that actually flows between Breezeway and Streamline, because I think this is really important too, especially when you're creating automations, especially when you're trying to ensure seamless operations. You don't want anything kind of preventing you from doing that. And so what Breezeway actually pulls from Streamline is all the property details and photos. And so think about like your bedroom count, bathroom count, and all the photos, the reservation data. And so check in, check out the reservation type, whether it's a guest or owner, the guest name, all of that information. And the fourth check mark here, I kind of want to take a second on this one because this is a cool integration or feature that we have with Streamline is the reservation flags and tags. And so inside of Streamline, you, of course, are able to add reservation flags to your reservations. And what this looks like is like, let's say you have a home that is able to be heated and a guest opts into that. Maybe you get an upsell from the guest. That flag is able to go into Streamline. That can be pulled into Breezeway and you can automatically schedule at check-in, turn on the pool heat, at checkout, turn off the pool heat. And so a lot of cool automations allow you to make this happen. And so, so many, upsells are becoming increasingly important in our industry, and being able to automate those just allows you to ensure that you can actually handle those upsells rather than just offering upsells and kind of figuring out how to get things to the property, get stuff there. I know my beach property management, they have beach packages, chair packages, different stuff like that. And having that come in automatically and schedule automatically really helps them out. And then pushed to Streamline is the work orders. And so a task from Breezeway, you're able to push that over to Streamline and it'll actually turn into a work order. And so those work orders, of course, like Ben stated earlier, are able to go onto the owner statement. And so when you have it on the owner statement, that's when the owners are able to see the work that you're doing. You're able to charge them for the work you're doing, and you're able to even have those photos of the tasks. And so super cool features there. I guess the last one I'll note is the property clean status. So obviously, if you're doing the operations inside of Breezeway, you want that to also show into Streamline. And so we have a feature where we're able to push that unit status from Breezeway back to Streamline just so they're talking to one another.
Yeah. Connor, I would
Mm.
add just on the work orders pushing back to the owner statements. We've cut back on a lot of calls and questions from owners, which are obviously not that fun to deal with and ultimately generally lead to some sort of credit. When the work order isn't documented properly or the description is wrong. So we've been able to use in Breezeway and create basically a template for every single thing that could come up. And that template has, an opportunity to write notes, and those can ultimately push back to the owner statement. So we do a review of the owner statements before we send them out, but the proper labeling of the work order, the proper note on the work order ultimately leads to less calls, less credits, and therefore money back in our pocket.
Oh yeah. We call that operations hygiene, ensuring that your tasks are set up the way that's most efficient. So when it pushes back to your property management system, you're doing as little work as possible. You're ensuring the owners know exactly what you're charging them for.
Yeah.
And so certainly kind of understand like that need. Yeah, but operations hygiene. I
Yeah.
guess one question for you is how does having Streamline and Breezeway connected change how your team actually operates?
Well, yeah, I just shared that one example, but how we operate, if we didn't have one or the other, for example, if Streamline wasn't connected to Breezeway and pushing all the data about each reservation in the unit, basically it wouldn't work. Breezeway would it would be more manual and vice versa, right? We'd have manual processes trying to complete owner statements and therefore mistakes. So, really, it we've been through some softwares over the years, and I can't think of a time where the Streamline to Breezeway connection hasn't been working properly. Like we used to have issues with connections on our old PMS, and it would be kind of a constant, customer service call, and when's it going to be back online? I literally don't think it's ever happened where the connection's been down. And I don't even want to think about what we would do if they weren't connected and working seamlessly together. Um, Streamline's been absolutely wonderful. We've been able to increase our profitability on the reservation side, and Breezeway has been kind of the operations support behind that, and it's just been great.
Awesome. Well, let's talk about the key takeaways here. Of course, operations is where the guest experience is made, and that's the key here. Ensuring the guests have a good experience is really where your operation starts, and that's the goal. When the guest is happy, when the guest comes back, you get more money, the owner gets more money, the owner's happy as well. And so being able to automate that allows your team to focus on hospitality, creating that great experience for the guest so that you have more time to kind of do other stuff in the business and ensure the guest is, having that experience, getting more owners, working on your marketing. And then the best time to build your system is before you need it. And so I know for our summer markets, a busy season is upon us. Our winter markets, I feel like they're always busy, but definitely, you know, before you get into your back-to-backs, your steady schedule is when you should start thinking about this. But also before you start to like grow and you start to think about like, hey, if I want to add 30 units this year, what does that look like and how do I get there? Um, Focusing on operations, ensuring you have it streamlined to where you get it as efficient as possible is how to do that. And so ensuring that that connectivity between your property management system and your operations layer is being proactive and less reactive is where you're going to see a lot of the efficiencies. So I guess Ben, do you have any final thoughts on or anything you want to tell to other operators that you wish you had known before doing all that you've done?
Yeah, two things. Again, Streamline's been great, but I do wish we had onboarded Breezeway alongside Streamline from the start. I think not every software is good at everything, right? Breezeway is not a reservations booking platform, and in my opinion, Streamline is a great reservations platform, but not as good as Breezeway on the operations side. I think it's well worth the extra money, and certainly we learned a lesson there and would have onboarded Breezeway from the start had we known better. But the other thing that I regret not doing sooner was utilizing Breezeway messaging. So we didn't start using messaging until a year into Breezeway. Um, my thinking at first, or the decision was made not to add messaging because we already had our email inbox to monitor. We had the phone system to monitor and voicemails, and it was just like another place to check and monitor and make sure we don't miss anything. So we ultimately did decide to add messaging, and it actually ended up being a net positive because it cut down on emails, it cut down on phone calls. So if we think about how we all communicate these days, text message is the standard, and with messaging, you're essentially texting with the guest. And what we found was when we need to reach the guest and give them information or get information back from them quickly, text is the best way because they see it, they can respond, it's informal. It eliminates, that phone call that they don't get because they're in the airplane and it's, no service. It eliminates the email that they get with some information about their arrival, but they have questions and they didn't see it until later, and now our office is closed and they're just not as happy. So it really ultimately it cut down on communication because we were able to get quicker responses back and forth between the guest and us. It closed loops quicker, and absolutely, I regret not adding messaging from the start. And I'm quite confident it would have the same effect on any other operator.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that about messaging. I guess I'll let you in on a sneak peek, but the strength between our messaging and operations is getting even stronger very soon. Of course, AI is the big buzzword for all property management systems and softwares. And so we're gonna have like suggested tasks when guests write in, and so you're it's gonna make it even easier to like create those tasks from operations very soon. So lots of cool features coming to like boost that integration. Um, which I'm sure you'll see soon. But
Yep.
now's the time for questions. I see one of them did come in, but feel free to reach out and ask questions. I'll ask this one out loud, but Tony said, how did the messaging migrate with bookings from VRBO and Booking.com? That is our concern of mine as a new customer with Breezeway. So I'll answer this and then I'll ask Ben to see um how his situation has been with this. But essentially for VRBO and Booking.com, all of those messages go directly through a text. So we get the phone number from VRBO or Booking.com, and so we text those guests. Of course, it's not on platform, but it is via text message. Ben, do you think you've had any issues with those VRBO or Booking.com bookings?
Not that I'm aware of, and it's not Booking.com or VRBO, but Airbnb, because they're a little more protective of their guests' information. We've turned on that system to actually feed the messages through the Airbnb platform into Breezeway messaging. So again, we don't have to check multiple locations. But yeah, before that, when we were sending automated messages, it was just to the phone number on file in the reservation. But now we're able to communicate within the Airbnb app as well through messaging.
Yeah, so we do have that direct integration with Airbnb, so it is going directly back to Airbnb. But for like VRBO Booking.com, that would send via the phone number. What I've typically experienced from other clients that have started using this and had those same concerns is when you send a text message to a guest and let them know, hey, I'm Ben at Freest Properties of Snow Aspen. We're so excited to have you stay with us. That's where they'll then start to reach out to you. And so as long as you start that communication and say, hey, this is where you should reach out to us, you're getting that pre-stay message sent to them, or even like a message as soon as they book, because we now have that functionality inside of Breezeway. That's where they'll start to reach out for questions. And then you can even set up automations inside of your VRBO or Booking.com that says, hey, for all your booking questions, please reach out to this number. And so that's a added layer of like ensuring guests are getting to the proper place where you want them to communicate.
Yeah, and I can understand the concern, for somebody that's used to communicating in those platforms, but I think ultimately we're all trying to build our company brand, and having that direct communication can lead to them realizing they're not just booking through VRBO, they're booking through a reputable company, and maybe next time they're going to call or reach out to that company directly to book. Not that we don't value our online booking partners, but it's not a bad thing when somebody's reaching out directly.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone else have any questions? Feel free to put them in chat. Love to answer any of those. I know we're coming up on time basically, or a little bit past, but I think we've had a good chat.
I don't see anything coming through to the chat or Q&A. So if it's good with everyone, I'm going to close us out. But thank you all for attending. And again, this will be available in the Streamline app within the next few days. So thank you to the team at Breezeway for joining us, as well as Ben at Frias.
Yeah. Thank
Thank
you so
you.
much for having us. We appreciate it.
Awesome. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.